Today is February 1st, 2021. This is the Kubernetes CSI implementation meeting. Let's begin with our usual agenda, which is to go through our release statuses. First is 119. I think we're just waiting on fixing the CSI Proxy build process. I'm going to sync up with Jing on where we are with this. I think the last update was we got the images pushed to staging, but we need to figure out the promotion process to the public repo because there's a promotion process for container images, but not for buckets. So we need to figure out how that's going to look like. Next is 1.20. I have a PR out to update the sidecar versions with the latest ones. I think it should be ready to go. There was a question about support policy, and I think I'm going to try to add a support policy page and see if that helps answer those questions. So I guess, Xing, if you can take a look at the latest update, that'd be great.
Sure.
All right. And then next up is the CI. Patrick, did we resolve all the issues?
I think we did. So the latest jobs seem to be fine again using the 1.5 or the updated branch for the CSI test. No, it's not CSI test. Sorry, I'm getting confused. No, we updated the CSI host path driver, the one that was used in master for some of the broad test jobs. And now that we have a consistent set of YAML files in master again, these tests that were broken for a few days are passing again. They are green. We also did the 1.5.0 host path driver release. And I have just a few minutes ago created a PR against test infra to also make some of the other sidecar tests use that version. The change is that in that release 1.5, we have dedicated YAML files for Kubernetes 120, where we are using the later release of the snapshot controller.
Okay, sounds good. Looks like at least in the CI, the 120 and master jobs are still failing. Looks like 118 and 119 are passing now.
120 on master. Okay, I'll look into that one. I haven't
Okay.
checked all of them. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you. And then next up is releasing stuff. Looks like there was no CSI Proxy release, so that's fine. We just released host path. CSI test, I guess, are you still waiting for feedback on the mock driver changes?
Yeah, that's the one. I actually discussed it with Jan on Friday. So to recap, there's one PR pending from myself about adding a proxy mode. And I intend to use that for the E2E testing for error injection. Jan checked that out. It worked for him. We were just discussing where to put that functionality. So currently my proposal is taking the path of least resistance. I'm adding a parameter to the mock driver binary that enables that special mode. And then I would be able to use the CSI mock image, just call it with different parameters and then have it running in that proxy mode. The alternative in various degrees of increasing complexity would be to put that proxy functionality into its own command, something like CSI Proxy, because it does not share that much common functionality with a driver, just some common parameters like the CSI socket path. So it could easily be a separate command entirely. Then probably we also need a second image, which should work with our current build makefile and infrastructure, even if we keep it in CSI test. So we would have a CSI test release producing two images, CSI mock and CSI proxy, or the most complex approach would be a separate repo. So I prefer to keep it simple.
If you call it CSI proxy, would that be a little confusing with this Windows?
Yeah, right. That's a good point. So I would even need a different name.
Yeah.
My personal preference is just to do it as a command line parameter.
So
I guess that seems
that then we don't need to use the JavaScript approach anymore.
Yeah, the long term goal is indeed to remove the JavaScript support once it's no longer needed. That would be the next step. I can't do it in one release. I basically
need. Do you have any instructions on like how to use this? Because
there is an RFC PR against Kubernetes core, where I'm modifying the E2E tests to use that proxy mode. It's currently using an image that I've built myself, so I can't get that merged until I first do a CSI test release with that functionality included. And from there, it's a gradual process. There is a question of, do we need to fork the mock driver code? Do we have an in-tree version that works inside this E2E test binary? Or do we have just one copy in CSI test, which we then vendor into Kubernetes? This is kind of a bit open. Vendoring currently doesn't work because of the JavaScript dependency. It might work better in the future.
There may or may not be cross dependency issues. Like if mock driver depends on Kubernetes, then Kubernetes cannot depend on mock driver.
That might be a problem. So I personally think it might just be simpler to have two copies of a mock driver code. And I don't see that they will need much further code development. So it might just be the simplest way to just do a one-time clean copy and then maintain two versions of it. But that will come later. It's basically the thing that we can do after we have a CSI test release with that proxy functionality included, and then I can clean up the PR against Kubernetes core to use that image, and then we can discuss that further.
Okay, I mean, I think the approach you have right now seems reasonable. We can revisit in the future if we think it would be cleaner to separate it.
Okay, then I just need a looks good to me from someone. I think Jan on chat already said that it's okay, but he didn't give his final approval, so that's currently pending. But I can ping him again or someone else.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay. Hello.
Like I think covered all the issues. I think the copying stuff from CSI mock to Kubernetes, like, okay, it will work, but we are creating a fork. And my second issue is that the path between the test and the Kubernetes under the test must be rock stable. Like, because there is a proxy, and if anything times out, then it will fail.
Yeah, but on the other hand, that is not that different from having to call some functions multiple times. So idempotency should take care of that. The test just need to take that into account.
Yeah, that's correct.
I agree. So my proposal is to start simple, convert those tests that do error injection to that new approach, and get some experience with it, and then perhaps take it further. I'll check whether I can avoid copying the mock driver, but as Michelle pointed out, there might be cross dependency that make it impossible. If it is a completely separate, clean sub package, that package itself might not have dependencies on Kubernetes, so that might work. But I can try. But the first thing is indeed to get rid of the JavaScript code, because that currently I tried importing that, I tried vendoring, it added a huge set of additional packages to Kubernetes, and that pretty much was a no-go. So in my request for comments thing, I stripped out the JavaScript part manually.
Like, don't stress much about vendoring. We can start with a copy and vendor it later when things settle down.
Yeah. Okay, so next step definitely is CSI test release with that included. There was one other PR that I've been waiting for. I think it's about the cleanup code, and the question came up in which order snapshots and PVCs should be deleted. I think we now settled on the one approach that most likely is to work with CSI drivers, but Jing pointed out that actually both approaches, PVC first and then snapshot, and snapshot first and then PVC, both should work, and we only currently test one direction. But I think the PR itself is ready for merging.
Oh, yeah. I think I actually got, there is a driver I know about. Like, I think most drivers we only test one direction, but actually I got word that there's another driver that can only support the other direction.
But
So
isn't that
like, I
broken?
think the conclusion that they can't pass the test because
Yeah,
the test
but
assumes one direction.
But Jing said that both directions have to work to be compliant.
Right. The
I
driver
don't
have to
think
do the driver have to do reference count, right? That's what you write in your the issue that you opened, or you say.
yeah. So I don't think I think the drivers will need to, you know, properly handle the calls coming in different orders, but I don't think they have to like be able to succeed in any order, right? Like I
Then they can
think
pass the test,
basically
right?
what we need to like I think what needs to happen is the test needs to delete both in parallel and not block on one or the other to
So
succeed.
you're saying that we should just keep trying. Do we?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have to move on to the next call. I think that's a valid point. If that is the case, then the current PR is not good enough because it will be
blocking, right?
It will. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like I think in order to support both types of drivers, I think the best approach is to make both like the delete volume and delete snapshot not blocking on each other, delete both in parallel. Let the driver do the ref counting themselves to, you know, fail one of the calls appropriately if they can't support one of the directions.
Okay, so that then needs
So
further
we
work.
but then I mean, do we still? I'm thinking that we should still test from both directions this way to make sure that driver actually always work. If we don't really like block, like it could be like every time we run it could be like a different ordering. Maybe by chance driver would be successful once, but then will fail next time or something. I was just thinking.
Yeah, so I think it would be good to have two tests to make the delete calls in two different orders, but I don't think we can make the calls blocking on each other.
Okay, if we don't block, I'm saying that it actually we can't really guarantee. Even if we make it call first, doesn't mean that call will reach the API server first, right? You know what I'm saying? So,
I think
you know,
I think the purpose here is that we don't want the call to get ordered because some driver only support
right. So
delete
my
PVC
only
first.
point is that if we don't make the order, I'm just saying then it could happen like at the wrong time. It could go either directions. So we don't know which one driver will get actually. Like each time we run may be a different result. So maybe they thought they passed, but then next time it will fail. That's my concern. If we don't like make sure it's doing in one order.
Yeah.
If we
I think we should have tests that actually try one order and gracefully would switch to the other, but we should have two versions, one doing the snapshot delete first and the other test doing the PVC delete first.
So I think we should still block actually.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that some drivers cannot support some of the directions, right? So
they will
cannot make it blocking.
The test.
How
my
to
proposal
handle this, otherwise they're going to fail sometime, right?
No, the test would have to do a PVC delete. If that fails, It then moves on to the snapshot and then tries PVC again. And then it's expected to
It's
succeed.
basically just adding some retries.
Yes, adding retries, but not just one function call repeatedly, but both need to be tried. And then the other version would be try to delete the snapshot first. If that fails, move on to PVC delete and then come back to snapshot. But by having those two versions of a test, we actually execute both orders during any test suite run without relying on randomness.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
That sounds good. Thank you. All right. So those are the two remaining things for CSI tests. Is that right?
I think that's all. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. And then we are not doing a CSI libutils release, so that's done. Switching to Klog, I think we covered all the repos except for CSI Proxy. I opened up an issue, a follow-up issue in the repo. I think, Xing, did you have someone that was interested in working on it?
Oh, you mean the Klog update Klog for CSI Proxy? Yeah, I can ask. Someone was asking about this, so I will see if he's interested in updating this.
Okay, sounds good. I marked it as it's not blocking for the release because they're not importing client Go, so they don't have this like V2 V1 mix issue. So it's a sort of lower priority for this repo.
Okay.
All right. That's 120. Moving on to 121. We've got a couple of PRs in progress. First, Christian.
Yeah, I replied to your comment yesterday. It looks like the CSI plugin and the CSI attacher are referencing different paths whenever they mount or create a new mounter.
Okay, awesome.
So,
I think that sounds good then. We
yeah, I
shouldn't
think we
be at
do.
risk of like.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Then we shouldn't like have any issues of like cleaning up the wrong volumes or something like that.
Right, and I do think we need it in both places.
All right, sounds good. Cool. I can take a final look at that. Next up is this performance E2E test. I think, Patrick, did you have a chance to look at it and provide some feedback?
Oh, sorry, no, I've been too busy. It's on my to-do
Yeah,
list,
that's no
but
problem.
I didn't get around to it.
No problem. Yeah, I think, first priority is feature freeze, so that's fine. All right, moving on to features. Our feature freeze is next week, next Tuesday. We need to have all the KEPs updated, merged, and PRR reviews done. I think all of the features we're planning to promote are on the spreadsheet, but it would be good to double check that your feature is there. I put the link to the spreadsheet in the meeting agenda, so please double check and make sure that we remembered to put this on. First up is CSI Migration.
Yeah, so for CSI Migration, the current one that I'm working on is CSI Migration Matrix. So I had a PR on the CSI Lab utils. It's right now waiting for Patrick and you to LGTM and approve. And other than that, I also had another PR which has been ready for a while but haven't got a approval, which is the CSI Translation Lab fix. I think I pinned Andrew. Yeah, the topology one. So I pinned Andrew's 2 times on Slack and 1 time on the PR, but haven't got any reply from him. I'll
Okay.
try to pin
Um,
him today, or
Okay.
yeah.
If he's not able to respond, maybe we can find another person to review.
Yeah, that sounds
That
good.
is familiar with this.
Yeah. So on the CSI
I
migration
guess.
matrix one. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Xing, do you know if Andrew is around?
Which one? Oh, you mean
Andrew Saikim?
yeah, he is around. He should be around. He's not responding. Which one you need his attention?
This one. This 92237.
Okay, yeah, I can ping him. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So for the CSI migration matrix one, I'm just wanted to understand if there's anything else that like any other feedbacks from you and Patrick.
I think from my perspective, it looks fine. Patrick, did you have anything else outstanding on it?
No, I think the latest version was okay. It was just that we were still discussing how to construct such a thing, and you had some comments and suggestions, and I didn't want to LGDM it before you had a chance to also comment. So if you are fine, I'm fine too with it.
Okay. Cool. Sounds good. I'll just take a quick look at it after the meeting, and it should be good to go.
There's perhaps one last thing that we might want to consider, and that is how do we ensure that constructing a metrics manager in a sidecar uses the recommended default values. I had one proposal for that in one of my later comments. So instead of having a very long function name that basically we are expecting people to use to construct it, which just will become unwieldy if we add more options that are defaults. My proposal was to have a slice with the default options for a sidecar, and then let sidecars add to that if they need something special. And then we can use the normal new CSI Metrics Manager with options, the one that takes options, and without changes in our sidecars, we can ensure that they use the default options that we are expecting from them without updating their source code. That's just one additional idea. It's not required for the PR. It's really just an idea.
All right, sounds good. I guess Java, you can take a look and see if you think that will work well.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think the defaults might even be empty at this time, because I don't think we had any options that the new metrics manager for sidecars actually had to set. It's just really future-proofing it against the case that we might add something in the future.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll sync up with you offline to see if we need make any further PR. Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
And yeah, and so other than this, I think I don't have any other stuff on the core CSI migration. So yeah, I think that's all about it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for the update.
Hey, can you give me the PR number again, the one that you want to take a look?
Oh, sure. I'll ping you. I'll ping you offline. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Sure.
All right. Thank you. Next up, we have snapshots.
Yeah. So I think so. Grant has a PR on the E2 test for the metrics. I think Shachen is reviewing it. Another one, the Cypress E2 test. I see that Chris has added some comments there. I think. Oh, yeah. I think that's what we have. There's also this one, the creating an entry PVC with this. So I just updated my PR. Yang, do you have time to take a look? I assigned to you if you have time to take a look. It's a pretty small fix.
Okay, then I can take a look.
Awesome. Great, thank you. All right, next up is generic ephemeral volumes.
Yeah, for that, I need to get back to the cap and update it. I haven't done that yet because we were still actively discussing the storage capacity one, and I'm learning more about what is supposed to be in the PRR sections. So with that knowledge in mind, I'll tackle the generic ephemeral volumes probably tomorrow and start
Okay,
adding those sections.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Let's move to the other one and then.
All right.
uh,
Sounds good. Yeah, let me know when this one is ready for
Yeah,
reviewing. Let's go to storage capacity.
yeah.
Since
So I think that cap is getting closer. The latest remaining questions in the PRR review are around metrics and discovering whether that feature is used, which is a bit tricky, to be honest. And the question makes sense, the answer is a bit harder. So the question was, how can a user or an admin determine whether storage capacity tracking is used by the scheduler? So they can look at events emitted for ports to see perhaps that it gets rejected or can't be scheduled because storage capacity isn't sufficient. But if everything works smoothly, there is really not much to see in metrics anywhere that this check has been done.
I think the scheduler does have support for everything is a scheduler plugin. And so I do think they recently added a plugin, like generic plugin metrics. So every scheduler plugin already has some metrics captured for it. But I
Okay.
would double check with the scheduler team on that. I think then the question becomes, within the scheduler plugin, do we want more granular metrics?
That's exactly the question that I was getting to, but because I can add something for this very special case here, but I don't think there is anything like it already for the other cases, and there may be a lot more cases that are relevant here. Just
Yeah. One idea I had, maybe let's ask the scheduler folks if the current metrics have this, but if there's like a reason, like a error, if they record the return error reason from a plugin, then we can at least for like this one, if it fails, we could return a particular error code for it, and at least we can detect errors in that case. But then to detect success, you would have to add that on top of a different metric.
yeah. And failure would be when all nodes, everything runs out of storage. Otherwise, the pod will still get scheduled somewhere. So it would be
Mhm.
very late indeed that you actually detect an error scenario here.
Which
Okay,
is
well,
fine.
yeah,
I think the purpose of metrics is to look at like higher level patterns, not so much like a specific event.
that's true. But the PRR question is specifically about how can a cluster admin be sure that the feature is enabled? And that doesn't have an answer when everything is running smoothly.
Okay. Maybe I haven't seen Wojtek's response to this, but I'll take a look and see if I can offer some suggestions.
Yeah. I did another round of updates, a few code edits or text edits, and replied to some open questions that you both raised over the last weekend or last 3 days. I basically haven't looked at it since Friday, and both you and Wojtek have had further comments. So I addressed those, I think, but this question around metrics, that's still open.
Okay, sounds good. I'll take another look at this. Thank you. All right, let's go back up again. We have volume populators. Is Ben around? I guess, Xing, have you been following the CAP for this?
Looks like he has not updated.
Okay. We'll sync up with Ben offline then. Next up is FS group mounting.
So Hemant isn't on the call, but he gave a brief update on this. He said it is being reviewed and updated. He's aware of it. He's working on it.
All right.
And then that was it from this one. And then he gave an update for volume expansion as well.
Okay.
Basically, he doesn't have the time for new features, but he's working with Sung from Microsoft on expansion bugs. They're still relatively new to update the cap. He said they don't have the experience to update the cap, and the entire process is a little bit tricky. So he's working with them on this.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Next up, we have volume health.
Yeah, so I look at this. Actually, I added some comments. I don't know if you get a chance to read my comments. Basically, I see that there is this call to get the volume stats, which we are already calling it in this in-tree. Our in-tree plugin is already calling it for the metrics.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are calling it in our agent for this volume house. I'm just wondering if that could all be handled by this in-tree plugin instead of doing this one outside.
Mm-hmm.
But of
That's
course,
that's a thought.
but of course that will
might
be a
work.
little different. It's not like the same as the existing metrics, right? So this is we are actually adding those to the events or something. So that will be a little different. But because if we are talking about how not to do, add another informer or how to limit it. I mean, we can limit it by checking the node. Actually, there's a way to make sure only the pods on that particular node are getting watched. So we can filter that out. I think that will actually reduce the number of pods that we're watching. But I was just wondering, yeah, does it make sense to actually have Kubernetes handle this?
Okay. I can help take a look at this. I mean, yeah, I'll take a look at this and then I'll sync up with you.
Okay, yeah, I didn't really add those changes in. I just added the comment there.
Oh, I see.
Because I want to get feedback before I actually go ahead and make those changes. This will may be very different from what we have already, right? So I just want to see where we are heading before I go there. I look at the node problem detector. So that's not really the same. I mean, yeah, it is a daemon, but that does not use. We have our CSI driver, right, deployed together. So they don't have it. If we add this as part of that, then that means always we'll have to deploy the node problem detector with our node plugin, which seems to be, does not seem to be intended. And also, those are collecting those metrics and events for the node. In our case, we are actually adding this on the pod. So that's also another big difference, because that one actually collecting all of those metrics and then kind of consolidate them on the node itself. And also it's either metrics or events, or if it's like permanent condition, they actually have a node condition, like something like, for example, disk pressure, those type of thing, right? Or CPU type of problem. So it's not exactly the same. If we put everything on the node, maybe seems to be, that's just because we are actually trying to get that for each PV. And I was also thinking, whether do we really want to add those events to the pod? I think initially we were doing that because we try not to send conflicting messages to the PVCs. If we are getting some messages from the node side and some from the controller side, they are conflicting with each other. The same PVC will be confusing. So that's why we decided to put those on the pod. But does it really make sense to put them on the pod, though? I'm saying that we could still come back and just move those information on the PVC. So that's another. Then
okay.
I have to.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks for checking in on all these different things. I think it sounds like node problem detector does not look like a good fit, because it would be hard to just dynamically configure the node problem detector to like pull metrics from arbitrary CSI plugins.
Yeah, they may not.
So like,
And also, it's
yeah.
also put everything on the node, right? But we actually want something more either on pod or PVC. It's easier for us to check. Yeah, I think if the node problem detector is there, it's a node, it belongs to SIG node. I think they will have a problem if we say you deploy this without plugging. I think they wouldn't like that. It collects a lot of information about the node itself, like the CPUs, some kernel information. So yeah, that's not
Okay.
distribute
It
together.
sounds good. Yeah, sure. I'll take a look at the discussion that you have, and then we can try to decide on something.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Let's see. We already got over this. Okay, next is the non-graceful node shutdown.
Yeah, so I actually just checked, pinned Yasin this morning. So he said he actually tried to talk to Ben about this, but he himself is getting very busy with these other tasks, so he asked me to take over. So I think I will pin Ben and then try to update the cap.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
I think need to add some CSS spec site changes, and still quite a few things to sort out, I think.
All right. Awesome. Sounds good. Let's see. Moving back to our agenda, I think there's no miscellaneous topics. Are there any other things that anyone wants to discuss? All right, then let's end for today. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.